It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Bobby Leonard, congratulations. An NBA champion is your own.
Well, we got complete effort. You know, Roger again tonight was fantastic. And it's just great to win and get this thing over with.
We're at 8,028.
The second pick in the 1985 NBA draft goes to the Indiana Pacers. The horseshoe works. Basketball is back in New York City, my friend.
Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Pacers still need some help. Oh, he threw it away. Reggie for three. Boom, baby. It's a tie ball game. Unbelievable.
Look at Jalen. Look at Reggie. Time has run out, and the Pacers have conquered their demons. The final, Indiana 93, New York 80. The Indiana Pacers are the 2000 Eastern Conference champions.
Artesta's in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved. Steven Jackson's in the fans.
With the 10th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Paul George of Fresno State University.
Cartier gets it in. Here's James on the drive for the win.
Oladipo matched up with James. 5 to shoot. Oladipo makes his move. Drives to the rim. Oh, it's blocked by James. And with 3 seconds left, Cleveland triggers in. James, 2 seconds. 1 second to the win. LeBron James delivers.
Link to the floor. Pass Siakam.
They call it a foul on Victor. They're going to say he took his legs out from under. Victor's hurt.
So Victor Oladipo goes down trying to make a play against Pascal Siakam.
2-point game, 6 seconds to go. Halliburton driving. He's in the lane. He nearly lost it. He backs up and unloads a three. Oh! That did not happen! It hit the back of the rim. It popped high into the air, and it dropped gently through the net. Here comes Halliburton across the timeline. Cross court. Neesmith into the corner. Can Bryant do it again? You know he can! You know he can! Number 3 with a 3. Into the forecourt, Halliburton all the way to the goal. He lobbed it to the rim. Checkmate! Checkmate! Toppin with a dunk.
Sweet baby. Turn out the lights. The party's over.
7 seconds left. Time will run out. And the Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby!
When you get this kind of emotion over a basketball team, you know, and all the people that contributed all this time and everything, it's just out of sight, you know. This thing has rejuvenated Indianapolis.
The words, the immortal words of Bobby Slick Leonard. And what a long, strange, and now ultimately satisfying trip it has been. The history of the Indiana Pacers from the ABA days and winning championships to the struggles of the telethon and losing in the frozen envelope to the New York Knicks and Patrick Ewing, to knocking off Patrick Ewing in the 8 points in 9 seconds, to, of course, then the ups and downs, the 2000 Eastern Conference champions, the brawl that set the franchise back, the rejuvenation with Paul George, the battles against LeBron James in the conference finals, Victor Oladipo, and this being his city before his injury, and then ultimately falling into the hands of Tyrese Halliburton, who has now, along with Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, Jarris Walker, Obi Toppin, and the rest of that, Benedict Mathurin, the rest of that roster, and Rick Carlisle, Kevin Pritchard, Chad Buchanan, lifting the Pacers back to the highest point that they have been as an NBA franchise. And once again, we as a city get to watch this franchise try to win this city's first NBA championship and become just the second ABA franchise, actually the third ABA franchise to win an NBA title, joining San Antonio and the Denver Nuggets, who have done that. Good afternoon to you on a spectacular afternoon. It's a celebratory Monday. It's a celebratory Monday because the Pacers are there, and why not Indiana? Now taking on the team that has been perhaps the most consistently great over the course of the year in the Oklahoma City Thunder. And what does that mean? It means that the Pacers, of course, are the underdog. It means that nobody's going to give them a chance. Everybody's going to tell you Pacers are going to lose in 5. Oak City in 5. Oak City in 6 max. Oak City in a sweep. Fine. Fine. That's fine. Did anybody think they were going to beat Milwaukee? Did anybody think they were going to beat Giannis? Did anybody think they were going to beat Cleveland? Did anybody think they were going to beat New York? Perhaps not, but here they are. And that was sensational. Absolutely sensational on Saturday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And there are a lot of ways that we can take this. There are a lot of things that we can do to break this down and get you set for the NBA Finals, which will debut Thursday night in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And there's plenty of time between now and then to break down the X's and O's. There's plenty of time between now and then to get into everything that may or may not happen in this series, the matchups, the challenges, the obstacles, the plus and the minus, all of those things. But I think today, and I just simply made this executive decision, and you folks can tell me if you disagree, but I think today is just a party day. It's the first time we've been together since this happened on Saturday in what was a magical night in the history of this town. And I talk perhaps too frequently. Maybe I beat this dead horse about my pride and my love for this city and this state and how much I've seen it grow over the years and how some things that at one time I remember it. I remember the mid-'90s when the Pacers first broke through and you go downtown. Think about this. Think about this. In 1994, the Pacers got to within a game of the NBA Finals. They lost in the Eastern Conference Finals in 1994. In Game 7, Patrick Ewing had 47 fouls in the fourth quarter. They lost that game in Game 7 in New York City. And yet still, in this town, they had a rally outside City Market where the team showed up so people could, celebrate them. And there were signs in every window downtown. This is back when people used to work downtown. There were signs in every window downtown in the then Bank One Tower and the AUL building and all of it. People putting up poster boards, Go Pacers, and decorating them. It was something. It captivated and captured the hearts of this city. And this city has had great sports moments. Great ones. Cold winter night, everybody waiting as the parade takes place. Impromptu for the Colts as they come back from winning the Super Bowl. The obviously hosting a Super Bowl. All of it. You've heard me talk ad nauseum about it. And now here we are with the NBA Finals, back for the first time and only time since 2000. And it's hard. I talked to Chris Hagan last night. Hagan calls me on the phone, and Hagan says, I got to thinking about this, Jake, as I was in that locker room after the Pacers won and was looking at Rick Carlisle, and Hagan said, and I got to thinking about it, were Rick Carlisle and I, meaning Chris Hagan, the only two people in that locker room that were also in the locker room in 2000 when the Pacers won the Eastern Conference in Madison Square Garden? Probably so. And it doesn't seem long ago to me. It seems like the snap of fingers to me. But in fact, It's been a long time. And for a lot of people, it's the first of an era and a generation. But it's more so about what happened Saturday night for this city and this franchise. Because you knew going into that game Saturday night, which feels like forever ago to an extent. But it's the first time we've been together since then, right? I know J&V did the takeover that night, but in terms of the spoken format, it's the first time that we, you folks, the members of the company, and myself, Jake Query, and Eddie Garrison have been together. And what we saw on Saturday was special, not for the reasons that you think. And yes, those are special. But in any line of work that you're in any line of life, spot in life that you're in, sometimes greatness is found, goals are met, benchmarks are exceeded when you have to dig deep or turn to areas where you least expect it, or where opportunity finally meets the preparation for it. And that happened for the Pacers on Saturday night because there was a nervous energy. Now, admittedly, I was in Detroit, and that's a whole different talk show here, but in terms of what it felt like to not be in the arena after I've been in the arena and very blessed and fortunate by the grace of God and total luck to be in the situation to see games this year in person and for the last couple of years, and very grateful for that. But I was in Detroit, and I'm watching the game. I was there for IndyCar, obviously, and I'm watching the game with Nick Yeoman, and I'm seeing the arena, and I could feel it 249 miles away. This nervous energy, excitement, but nervous energy. And when Jalen Brunson scored early on a couple of drives, you thought, oh, man. I mean, this can't go back to New York for Game 7, right? And each time that the Pacers would push out to like a 7 to 10 point game, suddenly New York would go on a quick burst run, and they'd score, back-to-back three. They'd have a 7-point run right out of a break, and now it's back down to 5 again. And there's this nervous energy. But sometimes when you feel like things might be slipping away a little bit, then all of a sudden, Andrew Nembhard becomes this bulldog defender, which he has been a great defender, but he gets uber aggressive and he starts getting in the head of Jalen Brunson, who is a tough-as-nails player. And sometimes when things get down for you a little bit or things at work aren't going well, Thomas Bryant hits a 3 out of the corner. And somebody that you pass in the hallway a lot is the person that comes in the big moment at work and comes through a play, and you're like, that's not where I thought that was going to come. But that person on their own was ready for the moment. And Thomas Bryant was ready for the moment. And Andrew Nembhard was ready for that defensive assignment. And Pascal Siakam continued to be kind of a guiding force, not just in the game itself, but Tyrese Halliburton is the most valuable player of that conference finals, not necessarily because of his 39-point game or his guidance, but rather by his leading by example of not getting too high at any moment and letting the rest of that roster know, I'm the guy who's won a ring, and here's how I did it, by not getting caught up in moments and continuing to look ahead. And Halliburton hitting a 35-foot shot to put the final stamp on it and finally send New York away or send the message there. In every aspect of the areas that Indiana needed an answer, they found it. And then how about the play? How about the lesson? How about the example given by Obi Toppin? Obi Toppin, a guy that I'm not going to say was dismissed by the team that drafted him, but certainly the New York Knicks letting Obi Toppin get away for, 2 second-round picks, essentially? It was basically almost like a salary dump of, we're going to let you see if you can rebirth Obi Toppin. And Toppin in that game did so many things. He did so many special things for Indiana, whether it be every time New York was starting to inch close, Toppin came out of nowhere for a block. Toppin came out of nowhere for a defensive switch. Toppin hit a three. Toppin hit a play in transition. And every time that nervous energy in that building started to percolate a little bit, Obi Toppin came in like a powder keg and said, I'm getting that nervous energy out of here and making it just energy. And I love it. And today, we got to celebrate it. The Pacers are in the finals. The Pacers are the Eastern Conference champions. And I don't care. I've never been caught up in. Nor have they. But I've never been caught up in. You know who I don't care one iota what they say? Stephen A. Smith. Who cares? Why the hell would I care what Stephen A. Smith has to say about the Pacers? Has this guy watched a single play of them in the regular season? Stephen A. Smith's there to be a shock jock entertainer. And the way to be a shock jock is to say that Indiana's not any good. Okay, great. Say it. Say it all you want. Do 4 hours today talking about whether or not the Knicks' answer is to get rid of OG Anunoby and Karl Anthony Towns and bring in Giannis. Great. Okay, let's go. Have fun. Do hypotheticals all you want. Because in Indiana, we got more important things to talk about. We have another series to discuss. We have 3 series of victories to look back on and celebrate. And I love everything about it. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, I've suspended reality for myself for extended here for another 2 weeks. And by that, I mean this. We are conditioned, and maybe I'm talking about an anachronism here and an old era bygone. But we are conditioned within sports media to practice and preach objectivity, journalistically speaking. And we are supposed to be those that opine and simply offer opinion or observation without bias. And there's all these rules about journalism that you're supposed to have when you have that credential and all of those things, right? And you know what? To hell with all of it. To hell with all of it. I'm ripping it up and throwing it away. And I'm the first to admit it, and I make no apologies for it. Because I'm in overtime in my life anyway. I'm well past the point of, I'm in turn 4 of my career probably, if not on the straightaway. And so I'm going to soak it up. I'm going to soak it up, and I'm going to love every minute of it. And I'm going to have fun with it. And you know what? I've tried to be objective in my career. I've tried to be professional. I've tried to do all those things. To hell with all of it. I am doing, and I'm making the executive decision. And if my bosses have a problem with it, I guess they'll let me know. But I'm going to do I'm going to be a homer. I'm going to do shows. And yes, I'll point out areas of concern. I will discuss things that the Pacers need to do better if they lose games. I'll do all of that. But I'm going to make zero bones about the fact, and I'm going to hide nothing over the fact that this team, to me, for the first time in like 20 years going into a game, I was nervous before Game 6, and I thought about it all day long, and it's been a long time since that's happened for me, especially with teams around here because I've had to shelf that for the sake of professionalism. And I'm like, you know what? My natural instinctive emotion here was to go all in for this team because not only personally speaking, I know what it means to people close to me, and personally for me, because I've gotten so much enjoyment and privilege out of it, I'm all in. I'm all in. And I always have been, but I've had to stave that. No more. I'm here for it. I'm here for it, and we all should be. Eddie Garrison is the producer for the Pacers Radio Network and has been along for this ride from the get-go. Eddie, your thoughts on overall just the trip to the finals, Game 6, all of it.
Jake, I had some level of nervousness, like nervous energy as you were describing it, heading into Game 6. And then I was making my drive from my house to downtown to the studio and ahead of pregame, and I was driving through and I saw yellow or gold and blue, gold and blue, gold and blue, gold and blue. I don't think I saw one Knicks shirt, jersey, or fan. And then I knew that the Pacers fans were going to show up and show out in Game 6, and there wasn't going to be a lot of that god-awful blue and orange in the stands. And I knew that that team would feed off of the energy of the crowd, and they would pull out a win. Not to mention the fact that we kept highlighting it time after time after time again during the New York Knicks series, during the series against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. This team responds to adversity. This team responds to losses. They don't let it compound into the next game. A lot of that credit should go towards Rick Carlisle and the coaching staff for the way they've been able to help this group mature. I think Tyrese Halliburton's maturity over this course of the season hasn't been talked about enough. All of the criticism, all of the naysayers, all of the doubt that he has dealt with dating back to when the Olympics started. Should he be on the team? Should he not be on the team? And now you get the most overrated part of this. He comes out of the season in the worst slump of his career, and then he ends up not being an all-star. It turns into him being third-team All-NBA, and now he is leading this Pacers team to the NBA Finals for the second time in franchise history.
Were you surprised that Tyrese Halliburton was not named Conference Finals MVP? I think Tyrese Halliburton was surprised by that. I think he was cool with it, but I think he was surprised by it.
I was not surprised. I thought it was pretty 50-50. If he would have came out and had a great start, then I think he definitely would have won Finals MVP. But by the time that the game was in the fourth quarter, and that's when he closed him out, he scored 11 of his 21 points in the fourth quarter. The game was pretty much over, so all of those points people see at the end of the box score don't really add up to what it should have been, because he was really bad to start that game, and the Pacers needed him to close out because the offense started to stall in the fourth quarter, just like it did in Game 4, and he was able to put them on his back in the final quarter when they needed it the most.
I want to talk about a couple of the things that happened that we saw come to fruition in terms of the vision. And I want to go back to, before we start looking forward to, and we have plenty of time now to talk about the task at hand, which is the Oklahoma City Thunder. And that's another thing. One of the things, let me tell you the biggest thing, aside from the Pacers being in it, that people in Indiana need to celebrate. Okay? There's going to be plenty of time to grow to dislike the Oklahoma City Thunder. Hartenstein, who was a pain in the ass last year, and kind of looks like the Statue of Liberty if you look at his profile picture, oddly enough. But a good player, obviously, a very good player, but a frustrating player. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is obviously an elite-level talent. I mean, they have great players at Oklahoma City. We got plenty of time to grow to dislike those guys, okay? And to allow them to become thorns in the side. We got plenty of time for that. But there are a couple of things in play that I think Pacer fans with this finals matchup need to celebrate. We need to celebrate above and beyond simply the fact that the Pacers are in the NBA Finals. This is an NBA Finals for humanity. This is an NBA Finals matchup for basketball. This is an NBA Finals matchup for literally the country to embrace and absorb. And we're sitting here and swimming right in the middle of it. But there are a couple of factors that come into that. There are a couple of things that you can look back on and say, those are the boulders in the stream that have gotten us to this point. And all of it's positive. And for that matter, all of it's positive when you look at Oak City as well. And this is one that we finally, in life in general, there are times where you feel like you're sitting at the playground and you're the underdog and the big popular kid, the one that has the green machine instead of a big wheel. The kid that, like, when he turns 16, he ends up with a Ford Mustang convertible and everybody else is, like, bagging groceries trying to get themselves a Mitsubishi Tredia. And you grow tired of those kids. Those kids now have to sit and watch. And the underdog, this is the underdog series that sports in general can celebrate. And perhaps years from now, there will be a 30 for 30 about it. And I'll tell you what's special about this beyond just the fact it's your Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals. And what's special about the final artistic piece that you're looking at in terms of its construction. I'll tell you that on the other side, and I want your phone calls as well as we collectively celebrate on a celebratory Monday, 239-1070, NBA Finals of Query & Company. We've got tickets to give away today for Counting Crows. We will do that later in the program. Speaking of tickets, Eddie, what are we guesstimating it's going to cost to get into the NBA Finals?
That's actually a great question. I'm not entirely sure. It's weird because I haven't even seen like a Pacers promotion text come through about NBA Finals tickets being on sale, but I was told possibly somewhere around the $5 Benjamin range for a balcony face value ticket.
Okay, I'm looking right now on the secondary market, okay?
Yes.
We're going to pretend that you're buying 2 tickets, right?
Okay.
So right now, the get-in-the-door price, $600 to get in the door. That's in the top row of the balcony for the finals. Now, if you want to sit really low, looking like max price right now would be in the lower bowl. It doesn't look like there's anything floor-wise right now that's available. But lower bowl-wise, you're looking at top price of $11,000 per ticket. That seems expensive, right? Jake, $1,000 for upper deck with the Ticketmaster fee and tax. Before we get to the phone calls, because I want to get to that, a couple of things to celebrate here. We have plenty of time to nitpick why we don't like the Oklahoma City Thunder. But the NBA, more than any other league, is the league that is most often associated with conspiracy theories of favoritism towards big markets. Oftentimes because the talking shows focus on and routinely discuss things like the NBA. And so you hear a lot about the Lakers, the Heat, the Knicks. I mean, I get all that, right? But when you look at television market rankings, it's interesting because, as I mentioned the other day, I mean, Milwaukee's won a title recently. Milwaukee's a smaller television market than Indianapolis. If you were to look right now, would you like to guess for me, Eddie Garrison, the smallest market in terms of a television market, the smallest market in the NBA?
Probably Oklahoma City?
That's going to be very, very close to correct. I believe it's New Orleans.
See, that was my other thought. New Orleans popped into my head.
New Orleans is television market 53. Memphis is television market 48. And Oklahoma City is television market 45. Indianapolis, Milwaukee, by the way, is 35. Indianapolis is now market 25. But this is also, when you look at Oklahoma City and you look at the Pacers, they are 2 teams that are organically grown. Now, Indiana had to make trades to acquire players. Halliburton and Siakam obviously acquired via trade. Oklahoma City, it was via trades that they accumulated draft picks, but they've had to draft well, and they've done that. You know, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was not a top 5 pick. He is a dynamic player. They drafted well. Chet Holmgren, they drafted well. He fits with what they want.
Most importantly, they traded Paul George, just like Indiana.
Both teams are largely based upon the trade of Paul George. That's correct. But also, and more importantly, this is the first time in the history of the NBA Finals that both participants arrive under the salary luxury tax. In other words, they are within the boundary of the salary cap. These are not franchises that went out and overpaid and paid a luxury tax just to be a salary tax, just to be able to accumulate rosters. Neither one of these teams are put together with just a major shopping spree. And they are middle market teams. Yeah, sure. It is entirely possible that some guy flipping his channels in Huntington Beach, California, or flipping channels on Long Island, or flipping channels in the upper suburbs of Chicago, or flipping channels in Dallas. Maybe they're bored because they're like, Indiana and Oklahoma City. Who in the world would ever want to go there? One's got a Cowboy Hall of Fame and the other's got a racing one. Great. One's got a yard of bricks and the other's got some area called Bricktown. Cool. Great. Where are Dover and Honolulu, since those are the only other two state capitals that start with the same letter as the state that they're the capital of? Hallelujah. 2 trivia questions in the NBA Finals. But it represents going about and doing it diligently and patiently and doing so with the belief in a system, which is what these two franchises have done. And culture is the most overused word in sports, but I can't speak for Oklahoma City's because I'm not around it, but it would appear as though they also have culture. Jeff, I believe, was in Gamebridge for game number 6 and joins us on the program. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call. Just wanted to chime in on my experience from Saturday. What an amazing weekend it's been. I'm a lifelong Pacers fan back before the Boom Baby era, and Reggie, even when we were struggling to beat Boston and get out of the first round. Went to the Pacers' first Eastern Conference Finals win against the Knicks. That was Game 3 in '94. I think we won 88-68. I went with a good buddy of mine, and, man, we were caught up in that just coming-of-age time and the energy of the city and the team. It was amazing. So I was thrilled when my buddy came back for Game 6. So he flew in from Denver and made it back for this game. We actually – for that 94 game, to tell you how into it we were, we sacrificed a couple basketballs and painted them blue and gold so we could wear those to the game, which was a lot of fun.
That's beautiful.
And then, yes, we were totally caught up. We didn't do that this time, but, wow, we had a blast.
Jeff, how old a guy are you?
I'm 45.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You referenced the Celtics series. Do you remember when Chuck Person stood on the parquet floor in the Boston Garden and was screaming like nobody can stop me, and he was completely on fire, and then Bird came back from slamming his cheek and closed that out? And do you remember
Game
how
5.
I mean, it was so invigorating because you watched that and they were so close and it was captivating, right? And
absolutely.
It chased your imagination on what this franchise could be. And Jeff, the reason I appreciate your call is because not to esoterically limit this show to people of our age group, but, we sat through the Brown Curtain days. We sat through the days of waiting to see, go down to see Julius Erving and then trying to get autographs outside Market Square Arena while Kool and the Gang was playing because they needed to get an extra 2,000 people to the arena. And so it was hard to not be emotional, even though we've been through it before, even though this team's been to the finals before, even though you've seen it. Game 6, Jeff, it was hard, was it not, to retroactively be kind of emotional of just thinking about where we as a city, a franchise, and for guys like you and I, where all we've come from, right?
Yep, it was the same kind of reflection you might have at the 500. I mean, that's how I feel going to the 500 every year. And to be there with my buddy 31 years later after our first conference finals win and to close out there.
What's your buddy's name? Give me your buddy's name.
Bobby. My name's Bobby out in Denver.
All right, Bobby from Denver better be here for game 1 of the finals, right? Keep it going. That's my thing. Bryce, what's up?
Hey, Jake, it's good to talk to you guys. I just reflect on my time as a Pacers fan. I mean, I'm only 28, so I mean, when they won, I was probably 3 or 4, so I don't remember that part of it. But I just remember Saturday night watching the game with some friends of ours. We were over at their place. They live on the lake. We're up here in northern Indiana, so they're on the lake, but they have a big flat screen TV. We watched the game with them. It was a lot of fun, and I think about all of the comebacks that the Pacers have had this year. You think about the shot that I believe it was Tyrese hit against Milwaukee, and then he would do it again against was it the Knicks series?
Well, he did several, right? I mean, he had one obviously against Milwaukee in the regular season, Milwaukee in the postseason. New York, yeah. I mean, he's had several. But, yes, Bryce, there is undoubtedly something about the resiliency of this team, right? And Bryce, here's the thing. You said you're 28, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Bryce, what you are experiencing, and I love it. I love it because, to your point, you probably don't remember the 2000 trip. And I was around the age you are right now when that happened. Matter of fact, I was exactly that age. So this is the beauty of this, Bryce, is what you are seeing is you'll remember that for a long time. And you'll remember, and now you will chase that high, if you will. And that's why you become a fan, because 25 years from now, you're going to be in a situation where you're like, man, I want to go back and recapture that. I want to, I don't want to, not that you took it for granted, but you'll want to relive it again. And that's the beauty of sport, is now you have the benchmark, Bryce. Now you have the moments that your friends and the camaraderie of it all to enjoy together, and you'll continue to keep doing it. Hang around, everybody. We'll get to you. Bill, Pete, Jeff, and also want to let everybody know, 2 o'clock today, the owner of the Pacers, Steve Simon, joining us. So when we want to celebrate this day today, again, we're going to have plenty of time to break down this matchup, plenty of time to tell you what the Pacers are up against, plenty of time to look back and reflect on all of it. But today we simply come together and celebrate in a huge collective high five. And we'll continue to do so with the rest of you on the other side. Listen, I appreciate the support from people, and maybe I'm letting people down. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm letting people down, bless you, Eddie, because you come to expect on a radio program that you're going to hear professional objectivity. And yet, I don't know how many. My friends and I grew up in this town at a time when, and I'm too young to have remembered the ABA titles. I was born in 72, so I didn't see them. And by the time I was actively following and aware of basketball, the Pacers were a fledgling NBA franchise. They were one of four: the Denver Nuggets, San Antonio Spurs, New York/New Jersey/Brooklyn Nets, the others, that had made the transition from ABA to NBA. And they were terrible. We loved them. Pacer pride, the pride of Indiana. That was the best thing about the Pacers in the early 80s, was their theme song. But you went to Pacer games primarily to go see Julius Erving or Moses Malone or Larry Bird or the Showtime Lakers. And they were advertised as such. That's how they marketed them. And then when I was in high school, I still recall my buddies and I just on a Friday night, like, what are we going to do this weekend? You just want to buy cheap Pacer tickets and move down? And then I became a ball boy, not in the form of like on the floor ball boy, but the ones that when back then they would have 15 or so kids per game that would hand out magnets or programs or whatever. And the deal was you got a ticket to the game, a sweatsuit, and a pair of Pacers shoes. My buddy Dave Steinberg and I somehow or another got to do that for the 88-89 season, and I loved every minute of it. But they were not good. And then when it all came together, so much of our coming of age was watching that franchise and that team. And then I got into the sports media profession as I knew for a long time what I wanted to do, and it just so happened I was working here in Indianapolis. So I watched games antiseptically. I watched them in the same form of just in an analytical sense, because I was working in television covering the games, and I just couldn't have that rooting hurrah. And I limited that, and I almost nullified it within myself for years. And I mean, open disclaimer, if I get not to be too personal, but I mean, I know what it would mean to Shannon to see the Pacers win a title. I think it would mean more to her than anyone I know. It would mean more for her personally, and so that also ropes me into it now. But I love it. And so if I'm selling people short on this show for the next 2 weeks by being a blatant cheerleader for the franchise, then so be it. My apologies. My apologies. Pete, up next. Talking Pacers with Pete. What's up, Pete?
Hey, Jake, just a couple observations. I remember those runs in the mid-'90s when Clark Kellogg had to go on TV and try to get people to show up to meet the Pacers when they'd come back from a game in the playoffs when they'd won. Number two, I'm old enough to know that you could go out to Ben Davis High School and play pickup with people like Vern Fleming during the summertime because they had no organized activities. Number three, I don't think enough has been made of the fact that Pascal Siakam had the entire team down to Orlando last summer and had them there for like 10 days or 2 weeks, all in. Everybody showed up, just the team. I think that's what got them to where they are now. And the last thing I'll say before I let you go is how classy it was that they gave Nancy Leonard a shout-out Saturday night for what she's done. Thanks.
Appreciate it. No question. Nancy Leonard is the matriarch of the franchise. I mean, obviously. Without the Leonards, for those that don't know, this team was probably, when they made the transition and they were in serious financial jeopardy, they had the telethon, but it was the vision of and the belief of Nancy and Slick Leonard that kept the franchise alive. No question about it. Absolutely no question about it. And as for Pascal Siakam, like I said, in terms of the game minutes, perhaps Tyrese Halliburton was the most valuable player in the Eastern Conference Finals. But in terms of the leadership and getting them to this point, yes, Siakam. And I will readily admit, when they were going to re-sign Siakam, I was hesitant because I didn't want it to be a 5-year deal. It was a 4-year deal. I was worried about the back end on that. But at this point, who cares? Like, throw it all to the wind because they pushed all in. They absolutely pushed all in, and it's paid off. Jeff is up next. Jeff, what up?
How's it going, Jake?
Man, it's good. You?
I'm good, man. I got a couple of thoughts on this Pacer season and what's different from last year. I think Halliburton, he just finally decided he wants to play defense and try to guard somebody.
Good
I think
point.
that has a lot to do with it.
Good point.
And you know, in Carlisle, I was down watching the game in Charleston, South Carolina, and this guy's like, "What's wrong with Carlisle? Why didn't he have Mathurin in the game?" Mathurin, I mean, he's a good ball player, but Carlisle, you know, he's quick to pull him. He knows when he's doing more harm than he is good, and I think that shows in a good coach. Just like Thomas Bryant, you know, he had to sit for a while, and he came back, and he had a great game. And
Carlisle's pushed all the right buttons for sure. At least to this point, he's pushed all the right buttons, right?
Yes, he sure has. I mean, I can't argue with anything he's done. And then, you know, lastly, I remember back in the 90s, we would go down to Sports Bar downtown, and they would be in there with us after the game. The Pacers would be. Billy King and the Davises, they'd be in there hanging out with the fans. I mean, it was awesome. Billy
King working in the front office, man. I remember those days. The Davises as well, and, you know, Vern and then his brother Vic running around, kind of like back in the day at Netto's. That was a little before my time. But I'm telling you, that's what's great about it. It's the city's team. It's the city's team, and we celebrate them today. This week, we're going to talk with those that have covered the Thunder, those that break down the Thunder, and even today, we'll get into what the Pacers are going to see with the Thunder. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a little bit about that on the other side, but we'll continue the conversation with those of you on hold as well. But what exactly is now the forecast for what the Pacers see in terms of this celebration? I'll tell you next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours. You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Bobby Leonard, congratulations. An NBA champion is yours.
Well, we got complete effort. You know, Roger again tonight was fantastic. And it's just great to win and get this thing over with.
We're at 8,028.
The second pick in the 1985 NBA draft goes to the Indiana Pacers. The horseshoe works. Basketball is back in New York City, my friend.
Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Pacers still need some help. Oh, he threw it away. Reggie for three. Boom, baby. It's a tie ball game. Unbelievable.
Look at Jalen. Look at Reggie. Time has run out, and the Pacers have conquered their demons. The final, Indiana 93, New York 80. The Indiana Pacers are the 2000 Eastern Conference champions.
Artesta's in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved. Steven Jackson's in the fans.
With the 10th pick in the 2010 NBA draft, the Indiana Pacers select Paul George of Fresno State University.
Cartier gets it in. Here's James on the drive for the win.
Oladipo matched up with James. 5 to shoot. Oladipo makes his move. Drives to the rim. Oh, it's blocked by James. And with 3 seconds left, Cleveland triggers in. James, 2 seconds. 1 second to the win. LeBron James delivers.
Link to the floor. Pass Siakam.
They call the foul on Victor. They're going to say he took his legs out from under. Victor's hurt.
So Victor Oladipo goes down trying to make a play against Pascal Siakam.
2-point game, 6 seconds to go. Halliburton driving. He's in the lane. He nearly lost it. He backs up and unloads a three. Oh! That did not happen! It hit the back of the rim. It popped high into the air, and it dropped gently through the net. Here comes Halliburton across the timeline. Cross court. Neesmith into the corner. Can Bryant do it again? You know he can. You know he can. Number 3 with a 3. Into the forecourt, Halliburton all the way to the goal. He lobbed it to the rim. Checkmate! Checkmate! Toppin with a dunk.
Sweet baby.
Turn out the lights. The party's over. 7 seconds left. Time will run out. And the Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers. Yeah! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby!
When you get this kind of emotion over a basketball team, you know, and all the people that contributed all this time and everything, it's just out of sight, you know. This thing has rejuvenated Indianapolis.
You are oh so correct, Slick. 48 years later, let's go. The city of Indianapolis rejuvenated by the Indiana Pacers, who now for the second time in history have roared themselves into the NBA Finals. It is the Oklahoma City Thunder that they will take on. You heard the highs and lows over the course of the franchise history right there. Eddie Garrison putting that together as interesting. Victor Oladipo's injury happened as he was chasing, for example, Pascal Siakam. And if you think about the way this team was constructed, it was constructed, and Bill, Mike, Jim, the rest of you stick around, we'll get to you here. But this team, to some extent, was constructed masterfully by Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan and Rick Carlisle to a great extent in terms of having to respond to adversity. This team this year got where they are by having to respond at times to adversity. The early season injuries to Andrew Nembhard and Aaron Neesmith. The getting out of the gate slowly after so much expectation from a year ago. The having to dig deep and find heroics from players in times that you don't even expect it. Thomas Bryant coming off the bench after being used seldom in the Eastern Conference Finals and hitting those shots. And Nembhard having to dig down even deeper and become even more of a Bulldog defender on Jalen Brunson, who had tried to set the tone early in Game 6. But also the way this team was constructed in terms of there was a time where this was Paul George's franchise. And then the leg injury. And then coming back from that, and then Paul George deciding that L.A. was where he wanted to be by way of, yes, in fact, Oklahoma City, which is what allowed the Pacers to then acquire Victor Oladipo. And Oladipo, this was his city. And then the injury by way of, yes, in fact, defending Pascal Siakam. But Oladipo then becomes, again, a piece that is part of a trade. And having then your focal point be Domas Sabonis, and having the wherewithal, the vision, and the fortitude to make that trade and bring in Tyrese Halliburton. And now focus your team around Halliburton. And perhaps even a year ago, it was injury again that got them here because you saw Halliburton get hurt at the end of last year and the Pacers fall short in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then that creating the drive for where they are now. And Oklahoma City also used trades to accumulate this roster. Paul George being the epicenter of that. And flipping Paul George just as Indiana did to get Oladipo and as well Sabonis. And Indiana flipping Malcolm Brogdon for Aaron Nesmith and other players that they've gotten from that. Oklahoma City's done the same. And what the Pacers now see in Oklahoma City and what they will face in Oklahoma City is a version much like themselves. Maybe a little bit bigger and maybe a little faster. The one thing that is intriguing about this finals, and there will be time years from now to look back and say that you can appreciate Oklahoma City. But for right now, it's the last barrier, the last obstacle, the last hurdle between the Pacers and the first NBA title in this town's history. The Pacers and a parade that would have 1 million people down Meridian Street and around the circle and wherever they want to go. I would imagine it would start somewhere up around the American Legion and the Indiana War Memorial, go down Meridian, around the circle, then probably across Washington, down Penn, and into Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the 20,000 that are fortunate enough to be there and waiting. And all of that, all of those, sugar plum fairies can dance in our head about all of that, but there are still 4 wins to be had, and it's not going to be easy. Because Oklahoma City plays the thing that makes Indiana unique, the thing that caught Cleveland off guard, the thing that caught Milwaukee off guard, the thing that caught New York off guard, is they're called the Pacers. And I walked in, we were staying in Detroit for the IndyCar race this weekend. And it's probably one of 3 games this year that I was not in attendance in Gainbridge Fieldhouse in totality this season. And yes, I had the FOMO going strong. And it's been a long time since I felt that way. But duty calls, and I was there for IndyCar, and so we stayed at the Motor City Casino, and they have a sports book there, and I went down to the sports book with Nick Yeoman, and we got front row seats, and they had 2 big screens. And on one of the screens, they were showing horse racing, and on the other one, they had the game on. And I said, look, it's Pacers on both screens, because the Pacers are named as such because of the horse racing heritage in the state of Indiana, along with the auto racing heritage. But in terms of racing heritage, this team fits it beautifully because what makes Indiana different is the pace they play. Run, 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 run. Try to keep up. The challenge now is going to be that has caught 3 consecutive teams off guard. They weren't used to what Indiana is doing as an offensive juggernaut and mixing in defense. And the only other team in the NBA that plays at that style and with that system is Oklahoma City. And they might do it even more efficiently with more size. But it's just one series, and you need 4 wins. And they're 4 wins away from that trophy. And I've said before, and you'll hear me say it again, maybe today's the only day that I give this disclaimer, but if you are looking for objectivity, yes, I'm going to be real about what I think the Pacers need to do. I'm going to be honest about areas where I feel that they need to make adjustments or if they come up short. But I'm also not going to hide this. If in 2025 journalistic integrity still exists and non-partisan coverage still exists, I'm suspending it and giving myself that benefit of the doubt because I'm 52 years old, I'm in turn 4 of my career, and I'm on the main straightaway in overtime of my life, and I want to see this city and this franchise win a title, and more so, not just because it's Indianapolis, not just because it's Indiana, not just because it's my home, not just because I know what it would mean to the people of this town, but because this particular group and this particular team exemplifies and personifies what all of us should aspire for, whether it be in our workplace, our relationships, whatever it might be. Because it seemingly is a group of players that have put total ego aside, that have put individual accomplishment aside, and said, we are collectively coming together as a sum that is better than the individual parts. And Obi Toppin, against his former franchise, is willing to do whatever needs to be done. Need me to hit a three? Fine. Need me to keep a ball alive? Fine. Need me to swoop out of nowhere and block a shot? Fine. You need me to defer to Pascal Siakam as the MVP? Fine. Tyrese Halliburton might have been the most prolific player in the conference finals. Was he the most valuable? The voters said that was Pascal Siakam. And Halliburton, you could tell, thought it was going to be him, but seemingly Halliburton then? Fine. Give the trophy to Pascal Siakam. I want to be in the finals. I want to slay the dragon. I'm carrying in the duffel bag that Ben Stiller said because I'm packed to go to New York. No, I'm carrying that duffel bag because I'm about to put these guys in a bag and send them back on Southwest Airlines because bags fly free back to New York City to then sit around and call in sports talk radio about whether or not they need to trade Karl Anthony Towns because we're going to the finals. And I'm here for it, and I'm proud of it, and I love being from Indianapolis, Indiana for a million different reasons. And one of those reasons now is because I live in the city that has the champions of the Eastern Conference that are playing in the NBA Finals, and I'm all about it. So, too, is Mike, who lives in Miami and came for Game 6. Flew all the way up just for the game. What's up, Mike?
Hey, so I actually live in Indy.
Okay.
But I flew back from Miami after doing a cruise and watching the Pacers on the cruise ship. Flew back to Indy on Saturday, and a Knicks fan sat next to me and my wife. We both had our Pacers shirts on every day the Pacers were playing on the cruise ship and on the airplane. And he was asking, you going to the game? I said, well, no, the prices are too high. He goes, what do you mean? They're much cheaper than New York City. And he said that he hadn't bought a return ticket because he didn't know if he was going to go back to New York City to his second home and watch the Knicks in Game 7 or back to Miami, his first home, in case the Knicks lose. And my guess is he flew home yesterday to Miami.
Now, let me ask you this. Was the Knicks fan cool?
Yes. He was. He had a bunch of different jerseys. We got pictures of all three of us on the plane. He was very good. And, in fact, him and my brother-in-law chatted for like 10, 15 minutes about basketball and New York sports and everything else. But he was sure the Knicks were going to win, and I was hopeful he was going to fly home on Sunday.
But, Mike, there was a nervous energy about Game 6, was there not? Until
oh yeah,
honestly.
all of us were
Correct.
like, oh God, please win it here. We don't want to go back to New York. I mean, if we had to, we could win in New York. We did it last year, but let's win it here and celebrate.
Listen, I love it, man, and happy you made it home safely. Bill, what's going on?
Hey, man, it's a beautiful day to be a Pacer fan. First Pacer game I ever went to go see was back in 1967. The Pacers played a team called the Anaheim Amigos. And then Anaheim ended up moving to Los Angeles and became the Los Angeles Stars, and then they ended up in Utah and ended up as the Utah Stars. But people don't realize that when they transitioned into the NBA, the fees that the Pacers had to play just bankrupt the organization. They just made it super, super difficult because they wanted more players to come from those teams to go to the more traditional NBA teams, and it didn't work.
Did you ever think, Bill? Let me ask you something. 1977, sure. Right? The telethon years. I mean, and then like in the early 80s, Clark Kellogg was a really good player, but his knee gives out on him, and the Ricky Roby, and there were a million different storylines, right? Did you honestly ever believe at that time that you would see not once but twice in your lifetime the Pacers playing for an NBA title?
Quite frankly, no. I just didn't.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't see it. And when you went down to Pacer games back in those days and everything, when they had the band, a lot of times half the people were there to see the band that was going to play after the game. I remember half
see
the
Dancing
crowd was
Harry,
into it.
right? You want to go down and see Dancing Harry and the whole deal, right? And then go to Netto's afterwards. I mean, for sure. That's why this is special. It's more special than, I'm not going to say cities take it for granted. I'm going to assume in San Antonio they never took it for granted, but it probably became a rite of passage after a while that the Spurs would be in the finals. And it's not going to be easy. It's simply not going to be easy. Oklahoma City's really good. They're very, very good. One more thing here. Jim, what's up? How are you, Jim?
Hey, Jake. I just called in because I heard you say you was a ball boy back in the day, and I was a ball boy as well back in the 90s. I did it for 3 years in high school. The first year was the year we made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, the 94-95, when we got beat by the Knicks. And then the second year I did it, we got beat by the Magic in the conference finals. And then the third year I did it, we lost in the first round versus the Hawks.
Yeah, that was when Reggie had the eye injury, right?
Had an eye injury.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool to see the similarities between these two teams. Those 90s Pacers, they finally got over the hump in 2000, made it to the finals. There's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. It took that team a good long while, a lot of speed bumps along the way to make it to the finals. This team, the sky's the limit for many, many years. So, as one fellow ball boy to another, go Pacers.
I like it, Jim. Now, again, open disclaimer, I was not I don't know what the title was for what we did. Technically we were ball boys, but when you went to a game, we handed out like magnets and whatever the in-game promotion was, schedules or magnet night or whatever else. So and it was like, I think I did like 20 games a year for the year. But I remember we got a full sweatsuit and a hat. I would give anything. One of my friends lost the hat that I had. It was the best hat ever. It was royal blue, and it just had the script Pacers on it. And it was awesome. Eddie, over the weekend, not only did you have the excitement of being the producer for the Pacers radio network in a historic night for them on Saturday.
Yep.
I was in Detroit for the IndyCar race, Kyle Kirkwood getting the win. There have only been 2 drivers that have won races this year within the series, Alex Palou and Kyle Kirkwood. But things tightened up a little bit because Palou kind of got punted in that race, and now his lead is down to just 90 points, which is massive in IndyCar, but still. While I was in Detroit, I went to Windsor, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I might have pulled a Kramer when he went to the wholesale club with the beefaroni. I came back with more bags than I probably should have of ketchup potato chips. I got absolutely grilled at the border. I rolled the window down, and literally the border agent, it was the Grand Inquisition because he wanted to know why I had my entire back seat. Matter of fact, this is a true story. I had a rental car, okay? I go over into Canada. I went to Roots. I bought, and I was so superstitious of this. Roots is my favorite clothing store in Canada. It's like Abercrombie back in the day, more like Urban Outfitters. It's like Urban Outfitters and Gap meet, but it's a higher quality clothing. I love it. And I went in there to the outlet, and they had a sweatshirt that I bought, and it was just super cool. Roots was founded in 1973. And on Saturday afternoon, I went to Roots, and I was nervous. It's been a long time since I've been nervous for a sporting event. Clemson football, I get nervous about because that's where I utilize my sport fandom. And I was nervous for this Pacers game. And I went into Canada almost to get my mind off the fact that the game was that night. And I bought a kind of like a long sleeve T-shirt from Roots, and it just says "Champs 1973." Like it's an old school sweatshirt, as if you won a title of something in 1973. And as I pulled out of the parking lot, all sales final, I realized, Eddie, oh gosh, the 1973 NBA champions were the New York Knicks. And I became paranoid that I had jinxed it. And I genuinely worried that I jinxed it and that the Pacers were going to lose Game 6 and the Knicks were going to go on to win, and everybody was going to talk about how it was their first title since 1973. And then I would have had to burn that sweatshirt that I bought. But while I was doing that, I came back across the border. True story, my rental car started beeping very loud and consistently. And I couldn't really figure out why it was beeping. And then and only then did I realize it was beeping because I bought so many bags of ketchup potato chips that it was setting off the weight scale in the back to put on the seatbelt. That's a true story. So I have more than you could ever imagine. More than you could ever imagine in terms of the weight. But you, Eddie Garrison, and thank you for this. So Shannon was... So my girlfriend Shannon, who is usually on Boo duty when I'm gone, Boo is my rescue cat, she was in Denver for her brother's surprise birthday party. She and all of her siblings, one of which lives in Richmond, Virginia, one of which lives in Denver. She and one of her sisters live here. They all went to Denver to get together for her brother's birthday. And the only family for her beyond her immediate blood family is the Pacers family, truth be told. And I knew what it meant for she and her siblings to know that the Pacers were going to win the Eastern Conference. And so it was very strange to not be at the game to see the joy that she had in that. But at least she was with her siblings watching it from Denver. But because she was there, I had to put you on Boo duty. Now, this means that that's the first time that you have gone to the Casa de Jake, which is a very, very short list of people who have even been inside of said residence, right?
Really?
Yeah, very short list. First off, the cat was okay to you, correct?
Yeah, so Saturday, first day, went over there for about 30, 45 minutes, hung out. As soon as I walked through the door, he goes, "You're not Jake. I'm leaving." So then he runs and hides. So I'm just sitting there in your chair, watching some television, waiting for him to come out. Half hour goes by. I'm like, you know what? I don't think he's coming out. I was like, all right, later, Boo. I'll see you tomorrow, buddy. So then I go back on Sunday. He's sitting there on the ground, and I just sit in your chair, and I hear meow, meow, and he starts walking over, and I start petting him, and we start hanging out. And then after I get done petting him, he walks towards his room and just starts howling. I'm like, what in the world are you doing there, buddy? And you just didn't shut up. We were best buds.
Yeah.
Now, Jake, I did find this a little concerning.
Okay.
When I went over there on Saturday, there were red Solo cups everywhere. I think that's really why he ran and hid, because he thought I was going to
bust his party?
Yeah.
No, that's actually from my Friday night. I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't have like regular. I mean, I'm a bachelor, right? So I don't have dishes. I don't cook.
I did look in the fridge.
Yeah. Did you notice my fridge? Yeah. There's no food in there, right?
Yeah. Energy drinks, beer, and coffee creamer, and a can of beans. That was it.
Yeah, that's correct. And a can of beans. Yes. Got to get some protein, right? Did you enjoy the decor at least? It's like it's somewhat of a memorabilia museum to an extent, right?
Yes.
Museum is probably the wrong word.
So the best way I can describe this is
totally eclectic and nothing matches.
That is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
The other part is you can tell there's never been a woman to live in that place with you. Everything's off-centered and it just doesn't match.
Correct.
I'm just like, Jake, come on now.
Yeah.
That would drive me nuts.
No, I don't. But anyway, because of your duties, I brought you back a bag of ketchup potato chips and a bag of ketchup Cheetos, right? Bit of a curveball. Also, the Canadian Candy Fairy paid a visit.
Really?
Yes. So I brought you back 2 Canadian candy bars here, okay?
Oh.
Oh, you know what? Actually, hold on. I might have to swap this one out. Scotty Johnston, who is our producer extraordinaire here, and Scotty is – everybody needs this, right? Everybody needs a Scotty Johnson. I have always said that Scotty is what I call the copier guy. And I don't mean that in the form of Rob Schneider making copies on Saturday Night Live. Every company, no matter what company it is, has that one person that everybody's standing around the copy machine and nobody can figure out why it's not working, and then somebody's like, well, get a hold of so-and-so. They can fix anything. Scotty's that guy. He's the copy guy, right? Scotty at one point, I thought he had made mention to me that he liked Kit Kats in Canada because they're different. I thought it was Kit Kats that he liked that's different. But when I took him a thing of Kit Kat, he said, no, it's Canadian Reese's that's different. So I brought back for Eddie 2 candy bars here. One of them is, here, Eddie, you can enjoy this one to begin. I've never seen this one before in the States.
Why don't you flash it up to the camera so they can see what it is?
This is the, whoops. This is the Kit Kat Chunky with Rolo.
Oh.
So it's Kit Kat with Rolo mixed in.
I will not. I'm sorry.
What's your problem?
I don't like Rolos.
Well, they're not Rolos. They're Rolos mixed in with Kit Kat. How do you not like Rolos?
I don't like caramel.
How long have you been a communist?
My entire life.
Okay, the other one, which now I'm going to have to trade with Scotty. I brought Scotty back Kit Kats, just plain Kit Kats.
Oh, really?
But he said, no, it's Reese's that I like. This is the O. Henry bar made with Reese's peanut butter.
Oh.
So this actually now goes to Scotty Johnson. I'll have to get from him the Kit Kat. So there you go. And then you got your ketchup-flavored Cheetos, which I think you're intrigued by.
I was about to say that's a little bit of a curveball. Wasn't expecting a pack of those.
Ike has joined the program. I like Ike. What's up, Ike?
How you doing, my brother?
You know I'm well. Yourself?
Hey, this is a great weekend. I know it's a great race, great basketball game. I mean, everything was just outstanding. And the one thing, I got one request.
Okay.
After all of these years, I got one request. You know, we got the best sound in the NBA down there at our arena. We got the best sound of anybody. And ever since Slick died, I've been asking people on the radio, can y'all please figure out a way to get a boom baby after every 3 that the Pacers hit. You know, I don't Slick. And then when the game is over, when everybody is leaving the arena, turn out the lights, the party's over.
Now hold on.
Sure y'all can get this.
You're talking about in the arena, correct, Ike?
Sound in the arena.
Okay.
And y'all can play the boom babies for the Fever too. I mean, y'all can play it for both teams, but somehow get a boom baby. I know it's going to take somebody that has to go down and get with Mark Boyle and hook that up, you know, and just sit there through one of the Pacer games when Slick was doing it and record a bunch of boom babies and, you know, get a boom baby.
Here's the thing. Let me take this one step further, though. What if they only did it under, like, special circumstances? So, in other words, a Tuesday night game in February against the Magic – when Nembhard hits a 3 to go up 18, you know, it probably loses its luster. But it's a Game 6 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. You're up 3. There's 42 seconds left. They're trying to get a stop. And then all of a sudden, Halliburton steps back, hits a 3, and you hear this in the arena.
Boom, baby!
And then the Pacers actually win the game, and you're walking out, and the series is over, and the celebration is inside the atrium of Gainbridge Fieldhouse and the balloons and everything else, and there's television cameras going on, and everybody's going crazy and high-fiving, and they're playing this over the speakers.
Turn out the lights! The party's over!
Ike, if that happens, I will meet you right there. We can't go to Ike and Jonesy's anymore because you seem to kick Jonesy out of the equation, and that place closed. But you and I will high-five right there in the lobby as if we were like long-lost brothers separated at birth, right?
Hey, I mean, if y'all do it just that one time, it'd be great. But I think it should be
Let's go, Ike.
Of every home game.
Let's go.
You know,
I like Ike.
Baby after every 3.
All right,
so
Ike.
the young kids can learn what it means.
That's right, Ike. I love it, man. I appreciate it. I don't know about every single game, and that's well beyond my pay scale. But we'll see what we can do. We could ask Steven Simon. He's going to join us in 30. He's the owner of the Pacers. We'll ask him, Ike. Okay, so we'll see whether or not we'll ask Steve Simon about the Boom Baby idea. He'd have some influence on that. I think he had some influence, did he not, on the Boomer Grim Reaper, right? I think that made it back.
Wait, it did?
I thought I saw that. I thought I saw that the Boomer Grim Reaper made an appearance. Because I think Steve Simon sent out a photo of it in his pride with it. This is a great text, by the way, from Ron. I love it. Hey, Jake. Part of the state's basketball mythology was basketball goals on the side of every barn. That's why we were all jump shooters and not drivers, because if we'd crash into the barn wall, we'd break through it. Just had to stand outside and shoot. That's true. I mean, there is no doubt. Like, one of the, there are certain things that I think, and I don't mean this to alienate any listeners who were not born and raised in Indiana, because I certainly appreciate anybody that's listening to this show. But if you listen to this show, you know about me. If you cut me, I bleed the torch. And the movie itself, I've seen 50,000 times. And to an extent, there probably was almost a fatigue factor that kicked in terms of the reverence of the movie. And maybe I'm the only one. I'm going to ask this actually as a question. And feel free, folks, to text me your answer if you agree with me on this. You don't have to text to tell me you disagree. But if this makes sense, then let me know at 523-9288. Obviously, that's a 317 area code, 317-523-9288. One of the great moments of my life was after the race. I was coming down from turn 3, and two really nice guys came up, and they both had on Why Not Indiana shirts. And they were like, hey, can we get a picture? And so I think I might have even said, let me get a picture. So we took a picture of the three of us, and I said, hey, can you text it to me? Let me give you my number. And the guy said, dude, 2/3 of the people in this arena have your number, which I thought was pretty cool. But I want to know this. Am I the only one in this situation? It can be the brightest, sunniest, beautiful July day, and I can be flipping the channels. And if the opening scene of Hoosiers comes on, the opening scene where Normandale is driving and the music slowly picks up as the sun's rising over the horizon while he's looking out as he's driving, and you see the landscapes of a cold autumn Indiana. I think if you are born and raised in Indiana, and you in particular played like basketball as a high schooler in Indiana, and you took those bus rides when it was already dark by 5:30 or 6 o'clock after school to go to Kokomo or Muncie or Terre Haute or, even across Marion County. But if you were born and raised in Indiana, no matter how old I am, no matter how many times I see it, no matter how much I might be fatigued by references and reverence for the movie at different periods otherwise, that opening first 3-minute montage of Hoosiers kind of makes me emotional every time I see it, because it reminds me of the simplicity of an older time and era in the roots of where I'm from. And from an NBA standpoint, I think that this Pacers team kind of represents that, because it's not a team that went out and just threw big checks at big-time free agents and lured them here. It's a team of players to a large extent that some of them are here because they were not desired elsewhere or didn't get a crack elsewhere or were cast off elsewhere. And then they came to Indiana, and this is the place where they were able to come together as a true team, and they started to see that winning as a team and having each other's back as a team and playing unselfish, fundamental basketball, defending Jalen Brunson and stopping him 30 feet from the basket and doubling him and frustrating him, making an extra pass, having an assist-to-turnover ratio that is the kind of thing that statistically is the anomaly, moving the ball and sacrificing and not worrying about the headlines of who is the one that's going to get the big glory, but simply hitting a shot because that's what your team needs, or keeping a ball alive and rotating it over because that's what your team needs. All of it, to me, is why this is special. This is different than if the Pacers had just gone out and made a trade for Giannis, and now all of a sudden they're in the finals. Not that that wouldn't be sweet. But I think it's sweet because it is organically grown and fundamentally grown and principally grown. And I think that we in Indiana take pride in that. And I'm curious if I'm the only one that, when I watch those things, gets just a little bit nostalgically, melancholically emotional, because it reminds me that there still is like this decency about Indiana that's a little bit different. And that movie makes me think of it, and this team makes me think of it. Steve Simon joins us, the owner of the Pacers in 18. We have tickets to give away for Counting Crows. We will do that in the 2 o'clock hour. Steve Simon, the owner of the Pacers, is going to join us 2 o'clock as well. How many people do you think, Eddie, it is interesting, when you think about the Oklahoma City Thunder, it really is remarkable when you think of franchises that are relocated. Sometimes you automatically associate to or still recall where they had previously been. Even if they rename themselves, I guess, to an extent. Like, I think most people still, maybe not now as much, but most people are aware that the Tennessee Titans were once the Houston Oilers, right?
Yep.
I don't know how many people are truly aware that the L.A. Clippers were once the Buffalo Braves, but that's just because it's a franchise mired in mostly obscurity and mediocrity through the course of its time. And the Sacramento Kings, probably a lot of people associate that with the Kansas City Kings if they're old enough, but very few would remember the Cincinnati Royals tie-in, even though Royals Kings, it makes sense. But when I think of the Oklahoma City Thunder, I still think of it almost as an expansion franchise. I completely forget the fact that it was the Seattle Sonics.
Really?
Now, a friend of mine worked for the Sonics. I have to be very careful here to make sure I don't want to out totally the person. But they had a dream of living and working in Seattle. And
You're not talking about
when
me.
I said that, right?
You're not talking about me.
But it's a great city, right?
Fantastic city.
And so my buddy was like, I've always wanted to work in Seattle. So he managed to get a job with the Seattle Sonics. And he shows up, true story, and he's like getting his office all squared away. And somebody walks past, with a mug of coffee and looks in like, you must be the new guy. Yeah. I'm Bill. I'm changing the name. Hey, Bill, welcome.
What's up, Bill? How are you?
Good, man. I'm just so excited to be in Seattle. I mean, it's such a great city and da-da-da. And the person literally said, well, what's with all the development of your office here? Well, this is a great job. I'm so excited to be here. Well, we're moving. What do you mean we're moving? We're moving to Oklahoma City. No. Are you sure? Yeah, the owner, Clay Bennett, is moving us to his hometown of Oklahoma City. And I guess they didn't tell you this, but you were hired to be the front person to handle all the press conferences, setting up the reason why we're going to move and creating unreasonable expectation as to what the city. Now, I'm not saying this is all factual, but apparently, so my buddy was going to write a book about it called Seattle Super Silence, and I don't know if that ever he never actually did it, but. And I get it. I get, Clay Bennett bought the team and wanted to move it to his home city, which I can respect that and appreciate it. But there was a lot of, if I'm not mistaken, it came down to Key Arena and the amount of renovations that they wanted to Key Arena. And there has always been speculation, not saying factual, but there's always been speculation that perhaps they knew they were going to move to Oklahoma City. And so therefore the request they had with the city towards Key Arena was intentionally too lofty so that they then would have an out to go to Oklahoma City. But at the same time, as a native of Indianapolis, if I was a diehard NHL team, for example, and a billionaire, and I had a chance to buy the Arizona Coyotes, I think it'd be cool, or, back with the Phoenix Coyotes when they were around, I probably would have been like, yeah, I want to move them to Indianapolis. It's my hometown.
Well, the Arizona Coyotes are no more, Jake. It's the.
So I said they're the Winnipeg Jets now, right?
No, it's.
No, hold on. I always get this confused. The Winnipeg Jets became the Phoenix Coyotes, and the Phoenix Coyotes now are the. Is it Utah?
It is.
Yeah. The Utah Hockey Club, right? They now have a team name, right?
Formerly the Utah Hockey Club, yeah.
And what are they now?
Oh, I forget now. It's escaping my mind.
It's a snow animal.
Oh, it's the mammoth. Utah Mammoth. That's right.
That's right. They should have gone with. Now, is it woolly mammoth or just mammoth?
Mammoth.
Tommy joins us on the program. Hi, Tommy. Happy Monday. Now, Tommy, what's going on in the background there? Are you there, Tommy? kind of want to know what's going on in the background. Everything okay with Tommy, do you think? Tommy! I guess Tommy, you there?
Hello? Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, sorry about that, Tommy. I was worried about you. Everything going okay?
Everything's going all right. Go Pacers. Great to be in NBA Finals.
Tommy, it's unbelievable. Are you a native of Indianapolis, Tommy?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I want you to tell me this. Who's your all-time favorite Pacer?
Roger Brown.
Yeah, see, I knew it, Tommy. You're an ABA guy, aren't you? Back in the day, right?
Yes.
Freddie Lewis. Did you like Freddie Lewis?
Yeah, Freddie Lewis. Freddie Lewis.
Mel
Billy
Daniels?
Keller, Mel Daniels. Donnie Freeman.
Tommy, I love it, man. You go with all of them. Tommy, tell me this. Did you ever go, after a game, did you ever go to Netto's?
No, I never went to Netto's. I was too young, and I was too young to go to Netto's. But I would go to the game in the AVA at the Fairgrounds Coliseum, and believe it or not, at that time when you go to the game, Fairgrounds Coliseum, the ticket prices was $2.
Tommy, here's the thing. I don't think $2 is going to get you into game one, right? Or game three, I guess, would be the first game here. Right now, Tommy, listed at Tommy, by the way, you grew up in Indianapolis, is that right?
Yes, I did.
What high school, Tommy?
Attic.
Attic's, my man. All right, so here's the thing. You obviously, if you were too young to go to Netto's, then you were too young to have seen Oscar and Bailey Robertson and Cleveland Harp and Willie Gardner and all those guys, right?
Yeah, I was too young to see that.
But you heard about them, didn't you? Legends, right?
Yeah, I know about them.
I know,
and,
legends.
The Pacers were so cool back then. And when I go to the Pacer game, and say get it for $2, but I would go courtside and sit with Darnell Hillman's wife.
Tommy, my man, I like that. Tommy, give me this. Okay, Pacers Thunder. I want your prediction. Who wins and in how many games?
Pacers in 6.
Pacers in 6. All right, Tommy, let's go. Let's go. I'd be all for it. Tickets going now for, speaking of $600 is the alleged, like, in-the-door price. That's before fees on the secondary market. 6 Benjamins, as earlier Eddie Garrison said. $600 if you want to get in the game for game number 3. Are they going to get one of the two? They just got to get one of the two, right?
Are you talking about in Oklahoma City?
Yes.
Yes, they have to. And then hold serve at home.
You get one of the two out there, man, and then all bets are. Can you imagine? I mean, it's still, honestly, it still is kind of sinking into me. Like they're in the finals. Steve Simon is an owner of the Pacers and joins us next.
It's Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company. On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Bobby Leonard, congratulations. An NBA champion is yours.
Well, we got complete effort. You know, Roger again tonight was fantastic. And it's just great to win and get this thing over with.
We're at 8,028.
The second pick in the 1985 NBA draft goes to the Indiana Pacers. The horseshoe works. Basketball is back in New York City, my friend.
Indiana Pacers select Reggie Miller of UCLA.
Pacers still need some help. Oh, he threw it away. Reggie for three. Boom, baby. It's a tie ball game. Unbelievable.
Look at Jalen. Look at Reggie. Time has run out, and the Pacers have conquered their demons. The final, Indiana 93, New York 80. The Indiana Pacers are the 2000 Eastern Conference champions.
Artesta's in the stands. Oh, this is awful. Fans are getting involved. Steven Jackson's in the fans.
With the 10th pick in the 2010 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select Paul George of Fresno State University.
Cartier gets it in. Here's James on the drive for the win.
Oladipo matched up with James. 5 to shoot. Oladipo makes his move. Drives to the rim. Oh, it's blocked by James. And with 3 seconds left, Cleveland triggers in. James, 2 seconds. 1 second to the win. LeBron James delivers.
Link to the floor. Pass Siakam.
They call it a foul on Victor. They're going to say he took his legs out from under. Victor's hurt.
So Victor Oladipo goes down trying to make a play against Pascal Siakam.
2-point game, 6 seconds to go. Halliburton driving. He's in the lane. He nearly lost it. He backs up and unloads a three. Oh! That did not happen! It hit the back of the rim. It popped high into the air, and it dropped gently through the net. Here comes Halliburton across the timeline. Cross court. Neesmith into the corner. Can Bryant do it again? You know he can. You know he can. Number 3 with a 3. Into the forecourt, Halliburton all the way to the goal. He lobbed it to the rim. Checkmate! Checkmate! Toppin with a dunk.
Sweet baby.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
7 seconds left. Time will run out. And the Eastern Conference Championship has been captured by the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! Boom, baby! When you get this kind of emotion over a basketball team, you know, and all the people that contributed all this time and everything, it's just out of sight, you know. This thing has rejuvenated Indianapolis.
Slick Leonard. Those words from 1977 still hold true today as the Pacers, for the second time in franchise history, will play for an NBA championship. And in a league that has had, even though it's designed for parity, that is not to say that it has always been the case. And there are plenty of franchises that, like Indiana, have kind of waited their turn. And the Pacers, I think you have to give a ton of credit to this franchise for one that struggled for so long when they first got into the NBA. And as Turnbuckle Bill mentioned earlier, you know, the fees and the penalty, not the penalties, the fees and the payments they had to make just to get into the NBA as a franchise made it very difficult for them in their early years to succeed. And it was a struggle. It was a long struggle. You know, I mentioned it earlier. Remember the days, of course, it was a different era, but Pacer games would be on Channel 4, Jerry Baker, the Pacer pride, the pride of Indiana. The pride of Indiana then really was Indiana and Purdue, truth be told, and the high school basketball tournament. And it was a struggle. The Brown Curtain days. Brooks Steppe and Granville Waiters and Devin Durant, Stuart Gray. I mean, these guys were all obviously good basketball players, but man, they were not a great NBA team. And the thought of, if you want to know, let me tell you the two, and Steve Simon, by the way, is attending Jim Irsay's private memorial today and will be calling us after that when that concludes. So I certainly understand that aspect of it. So we'll have the co-owner of the Pacers on here in the 2 o'clock hour, I should have said. But there are two times that I recall, my first two media appearances, if you will, in Indianapolis. I would love to have this audio. I don't even know if Scott Johnston would be able to find it. But shortly after the NBA draft of 1987, WIBC had on the Pacers draft pick, Reggie Miller out of UCLA. And they were like, let's have Reggie Miller on. And I don't remember whose show it would have been in 1987. It could have been Boyle for that matter, but it was a call-in show. I was 14 years old. I was 3 months from my 15th birthday. And I got through. And I asked Reggie Miller, yes, this is Jake from the North Side. And Reggie, my friends and I are all diehard Indiana basketball fans, and we love Steve Alford. And we wanted Steve Alford. And a lot of Pacer fans did. And I want to know what you think about the fact of knowing that you're coming to a place where most of the people wanted Steve Alford to be drafted. And Reggie Miller said, and I remember it like it was yesterday, but he said, well, I understand that, and I know Steve, and he's a friend of mine. But I know he has a good game, but I think I have a good game too, and I think Pacer fans will grow to like it. That seemed like a fairly accurate statement after the fact. And that was, I think, the first time that I was on radio airwaves in Indianapolis, Indiana. And then in their final game of the 1988 season, a year later, I would have been wrapping up my freshman year of high school. And if this tells you anything about what it was like to be a Pacer fan at that time, I went to their final game of the year. They might have been playing New York now that I think about it. But the Pacers were in the running along with the Los Angeles Clippers for the number one pick in the draft. And I was interviewed by Channel 13 before the game. They were just interviewing fans, asking what we thought about the Pacers season coming to an end. And I said, and I'm almost ashamed of this now, but I said on television, I want them to lose tonight. And they said, you want them to lose? You're rooting against your team? Yes, I'm rooting against my team. Why? I'm rooting against them because I want them to get the number one pick in the draft so they can get Danny Manning. And they ended up with the number 2 pick in the draft. They selected Rick Smits. I went to the draft party with my buddy Dave Steinberg, and I was one of the 5,000 people at Market Square Arena when they announced Rick Smits that stood up and started chanting very loudly, "Walsh must go, Walsh must go." Chanted that for 10 minutes, seemingly. I couldn't believe that they drafted this scrawny, like, who is this guy that they drafted from Marist? What are we doing here?
That's so fitting, isn't it?
Yeah. Things would have turned out a little bit differently in my life. But I couldn't see the forest through the trees, right? And the reason why is because as a Pacer fan, I just was used to mediocrity. And the vision long-term, I couldn't see it. And they had Chuck Person. Reggie Miller developed into the player that he said on WIBC he would develop into. Rick Smits became a good player. And it just so happened that when they made their first playoff run, They ousted the number 1 seed in the East in the conference semifinals, who one of their better players was Danny Manning for the Atlanta Hawks. And the rest is history. But this particular installment of the Pacers is similar to those teams that we saw based on the fact that you couldn't see the forest through the trees. And I go back to, I guess it would have been 3 years ago, when talking to Kevin Pritchard. And Kevin Pritchard, one of the things he said was, he told me flat out, look, Victor Oladipo broke my heart. That broke my heart. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I really thought Victor Oladipo was going to be a long-term guy here. And when he got hurt, and Oladipo, I think, started listening to the wrong people. He got hurt. He went down to Miami. He didn't come back for one of the games against the Celtics in the conference finals. And then when it was clear that they had to move on from him, what the Pacers did then in flipping Oladipo and starting to accumulate draft picks, and then it came together now where you have, again, Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Obi Toppin. What those players have in common and what this team has done is something that we can all look towards and champion and celebrate, in the fact that this is a franchise and an organization that gave players who felt like maybe others didn't believe in them in the moment, and they gave them belief. And this particular team, there are teams in the NBA that you go out and you watch and you go, they're unbelievable, but they were put together via free agent contracts and luxury taxes and everything else. And then there's this team that was put together because they are collectively a sum that is better than individual parts. And the individual parts are very special, but the sum is even more special because they are as selfless a team as you can find in professional sports. And that's why this ride is so much fun for this city and is so good for the value and principle of Indiana basketball. Joining us now on the Ryan Geist Brewery guest line, he is, of course, a co-owner of the Indiana Pacers and makes a return visit to the program. Steve Simon joins us. Steve, let me begin with this before we congratulate you on this incredible run, and thank you for it in addition to that. I again want to offer a condolence to you because I know that you earlier today were one who was at the private ceremony and saying goodbye to your good friend and a city pillar in Jim Irsay. And so with what must be a dichotomy of emotion on this day, I offer the condolences to you, but I also thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jake. Yeah, it's we talked, right? We talked the day after Jim passed, and I just left a beautiful ceremony. Just so many people honoring his heart, his spirit, his generosity. It was really touching, really beautiful, and very sad. And yeah, he'd be so happy about the Pacers going to the finals. There's no question about it. And he, I think we talked before. He was he championed everybody else's success and took joy in that. And in the Colts' grief, I remember after we clinched, of course, we're all. I don't say X, I say Twitter. We're looking at all the great content, and the Colts just put out a beautiful, congratulating us and saying, but quite appropriately, it was probably Jim had a hand in our great success. So yeah, thanks for that, Jake.
It is
nice to be with you.
And I hope he was celebrated today, right? And I know that he will be publicly as well, as at a time when this city celebrates, Steve. And I want to begin with this. For your family, we'll get to this team in general, but just for your family in buying this team now over 40 years ago and going through some of the challenges of navigating in the fledgling NBA years, and now for the second time having the opportunity to play for an NBA championship. What does it mean for your family to be able to have that, I guess, contribution to the city of Indianapolis?
I mean, it's just it's an incredible joy and pleasure, and we're really everyone involved in this thing. They're your fans first, so everyone is just thrilled and excited and feeling, feeling hopeful and nervous for what's to come. And these guys have worked so hard, the entire organization. And, we celebrated after we clinched on Saturday. I spoke, the employees we had a thing for the employees and, celebrating. I made a little toast and said, we everyone in the organization, should take joy and pleasure and pride in this. And actually, it was incredible. I know you want to talk basketball, but it's a beautiful thing at Jim's service. Pete Ward shared about when he took over, one of the first meetings he had with Jim after Jim became the principal owner. He wanted to meet with the two heads of custodial or janitorial services, and him and Pete had a meeting with them and told them how much appreciated they were, how, when free agents come or sponsors are coming to see the facility in such first class, standing, they are as much a part of the success as everyone in the field. It was just a beautiful remembrance. And anyway, we all feel that way. We're all proud and really excited to be in the finals. And I remember I was talking to someone the other night, after we lost in 6 games to the Lakers, I was with Slick. I'll admit it, me and Donnie and him were smoking in the loading dock.
Right.
And Slick's like, Stevie, I'll tell you, you guys are good. Keep your head up. We'll be back here. And you never think it's going to be a quarter of a century, but we're thrilled. And these guys deserve, all the support. And the idea of a broader national audience seeing, the way we play is great for the city and the state and the organization for sure.
When you look, Steve, one of the things, Steve Simon is our guest, co-owner of the Indiana Pacers. I think culture sometimes, Steve, is a very overused term in sports. Every sports franchise says they have culture, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like you talk to anybody that, we have a great culture. But this locker room, certainly from the outside, appears to have that because there's just a selflessness about them, right? And the unselfish nature of it. To what would you attribute in terms of, and for anybody listening right now that no matter what, maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're coaching a little league team, whatever it might be, how does an organization build that kind of the chemistry that I think is such an important ingredient for this team?
I think we just continue to work on it, to talk about it. You got to give, Coach Carlisle and KP, Kevin Pritchard, a ton of credit and this sense of belongingness, but it really does permeate, I think we can say with pride, permeate, the entire, organization. And we're just always thinking about how do we support each other? How do we develop each other, right, and make each other better? How do we be honest with each other when we have disagreement? So I think it just stems from, being in the human relationship business. And, they talked about at Jim's funeral, like the whole is a much greater thing than the sum of the parts. But I think it's just something we talk about. What are we about? What do we believe in? What are our principles? How do we want to treat people? How do we want to be treated? And it is a big part of what we think about. And I think it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Now, I want to know, Steve, you had posted on, and I'm with you, I call it Twitter also. You'd posted on Twitter, Boomer, you remember the mid-'90s, you had the Boomer, like hiding behind the Grim Reaper Boomer when teams were down to their last hurrah, right? And then I thought I saw you post that had returned, and then because I'm looking in the background, I'm going, well, that's Gamebridge. That's this year's Gamebridge Fieldhouse. But then I realized that this was probably photoshopped. Is that what this was, or did you actually use your powers?
It was not photoshopped. I don't have a lot of ideas, but I'm like, we used to do that when we would beat someone's, we blow someone out. We didn't do it, we picked our spots. But I think then we got too sensitive, like, we may offend the other team. And so I'm like, we should bring back the Grim Reaper. Boomer's the Grim Reaper.
Right.
And they're like, I don't know. And then they're like, well, wait a minute. if we actually are finishing someone in a series, we won't face them until next year. I think we're going to do it. And I didn't hear anything about it after that. And then I didn't, I missed it. Of course, I was in the building. But anyway, they showed me, and I was so proud that one of my stupid ideas came back, which is Boomer is the Grim Reaper. I mean, it doesn't speak. It's not a high on the list thing, but it was.
Well,
I enjoyed it.
I don't know. Here's what I love about this. I like the fact that you're giddy that one of your ideas might be used, but like you have a little bit of authority within the franchise, do you not?
I have a little bit. I do. We're yeah, I do. But by the way, like Dean and everyone who's running the game ops and everything, like, we make suggestions, we go over things. They're as good as anyone. And so we throw out a little suggestion or something. Once in a while we'll say, hey, can you do this? Not often, because basically we're like, hey, here's some ideas, and we empower our game ops people just like our basketball people, just like our business people, to go make decisions and do what they're comfortable with. And so I love the fact that I felt, I heard about it afterwards. They didn't say, hey, we're going to do this. I heard it might come back, but I found out almost, like a fan looking at social media. So
okay.
Great.
So here's one of the ideas, Steve, that somebody passed along to us, right? And yeah. I got to admit, I kind of like this idea, but I need you to grade it. Okay, we had a fan suggestion that I want Steve Simon, co-owner of the Indiana Pacers, who's on the Run Guys Brewery guest line. I want you to grade this idea. Now, I had to temper it a little bit because somebody said they want to hear this in the arena with every time there's a three made. They want to hear this played, and I said, well, we can't do it every time because threes. Every shot is great, but one on a Tuesday in November against Orlando is different than in a Game 6 with 2 minutes left, so to speak, right? But so let's just say it's the NBA Finals. The Pacers are digging deep. They need a big shot. Halliburton hits a big shot. Roof comes off Gamebridge, and then the PA plays this. If you can hear it, baby! Now, what about that? What about playing the Slick Boom Baby?
I think it's a great idea. By the way, I love Slick Leonard as much as most people. And I was just thinking about him and David Benner, Jim Moore, thinking of folks who would be so happy. We were just talking the other night. Slick would have loved this team. But us sprinkling Boom Babies in for, obviously, and I saw Nancy the other night, which was amazing. They saved the Pacers, right? Slick and Nancy. With that telethon, and the idea of having Slick, sprinkled occasionally into our fans, reality is a great idea. So I give it an 8 or 9.
Nice. Okay.
Now people may disagree with me. I'll hear afterwards, but it's a great idea. And Boyle posted something beautiful. They were so close, and God, if only we had Slick to enjoy this with us. But, he probably is anyway, and we're just not aware of it. So
no question.
That's a great idea.
No question.
I give it high, Jake. I give it high.
Now, I want to read something to you, Steve, and I want you to tell me, and when you hear it, take a second to kind of absorb it, right? Because I think this is the beauty of sport, right? I mean, the reality is they used to always say that sports is the playground of the newsroom, right? I mean, but it is still, it's not only a business, but it's also a part of who we are, okay? I just got this text. And I'll be honest, Steve, I don't even have the name of the person that texted it to me, okay? But I got this text from a listener. Jake, I've been a Pacers fan since the ABA days. I found out that I had cancer in 2016. I had joked that I had seen IU win a championship. I had seen the Colts win the Super Bowl. It didn't look like I would see an NBA title. I went into remission in 2018. I just found out that my cancer was back a few months ago, and that's why Saturday night was so incredibly emotional. I still have a chance.
Wow.
Now that means something, doesn't it, Steve? It means something.
I mean, that's really, that's sort of pulling me up a little bit. I mean, that fan, you don't even know who it is. I don't know, we're wishing them the best. And if we could, for every fan, if we could, win 4 more games and host a championship, it would be a culmination of a dream for a long, long time, man. I always talk to Slick, man. 3 ABA championships, God, would be so great. So great to win one in the NBA, and we're one of 2 teams alive, and we're a pretty damn good team, and we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight and claw and play to our, highest. We know that, so I can't wait to watch it.
Steve, before we let you go, this Oklahoma City team, one of the things that I think is special about this, and I want your perspective on this. This is the first time in the history of the NBA since the salary cap and luxury tax came about that you have 2 teams that are neither one spent into the luxury tax to get there, okay? When you think about that in the way that Oklahoma City has been built kind of organically as well, is it a validation of that approach? Is it strictly coincidence or necessity? And if it gets that close and then all of a sudden you realize that to run it back, that is something that may have to temporarily be done, is it something the franchise would be willing to do?
Well, we're gonna, we'll consider anything to bring the fans and the city and the state a championship. I mean, we're always thinking of everything. I didn't know that. Is that the first? I don't even know the stat. Whatever you gave me, but the fact that
it's
these
the
are
first
2
time
teams that are
correct. Neither team has been is paying the luxury tax.
Well, I don't know if it's a validation, but I have the highest respect for Clay Bennett and the entire organization. That they've done it. Sam Presti, who runs their basketball, I know our folks are, think the world of them too. They've done it. They've done it the right way. They've done it over time. They're very good. They're very deep. I think they still have a bunch of draft picks, and they, by the way, not that I should tout the Pacers, not Oklahoma City, but always, because I just think a lot of those guys, they were always building the equity in that Thunder. They had the big 3 of Durant and Westbrook and Harden, and they knew after Durant there'd be another era, and they just always thought about their culture and the brand, and we don't say good luck, we say good health to the person the team we're playing, but I think a lot of how they built culture and done things, and I congratulate them on their success to date. Hopefully not in the future.
Now, would this group be able to be retained to run it back, whichever way this goes?
I mean, we want to have this group, which has been incredible. We made a couple of additions, right, since last year's Eastern Conference, finalist, and we want this group to stay together. Absolutely, of course, we do.
Steve, we'll see what happens. I think it's fabulous. I'm just, I mentioned earlier off the top of the show, and I know that obviously you were at the service for Mr. Irsay, but it has been my job, at least in my opinion, to hold an objectivity and to hold a professionalism within the industry that I'm in. And I have decided to hell with that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm in turn 4 of my career and on the main straight of my life in overtime. So I'm just going ahead and throwing the professionalism out the window, and I'm going to be the biggest damn homer there's been for the next 2 weeks.
I love it, Jake. But by the way, you do such a great job. You're always going to still be. You could be a little bit of a homer. But, some people have suggested Boyle be more of a homer, less of a homer. You've done a great job. You have your integrity and what you've done, and you can be a little bit of homer, but you're still gonna. You do a great job, and you should be really proud of of your show and how you do it and what you're about. So I'm happy to talk to you the second time. Let's not make a habit of it. You got a lot of better people to talk to, but congratulations on your success, and let's go try to win a championship.
That's right. We'll at least have to talk to you one more time to plan the parade. Does that work?
Okay. You have a deal. God
All right.
Take care, Jake.
Appreciate it. Steve Simon joining us on the Rhinegeist Brewery guest line. Good stuff there. And again, I do think, and I have said before, I do believe that they will, in fact, if they had to, like Miles Turner, for example. I think that he's told us before. I do believe that Miles Turner wants to be here, And I know that right now there are probably some creativity you have to do financially to make that happen. But if that includes the tax, I believe personally that Indiana, maybe not, annually, but I think that they will, in the immediacy, if they had to do that they will do exactly that. But we shall see. We have tickets to give away for Counting Crows. We will do that on the other side here as we roll along. Query and Company on the Fan. for this show to see Counting Crows. They will be appearing with the Gaslight Anthem. That's Saturday, June 14th. My quick math tells me. Matter of fact, that would be the night after Game 3 of the NBA Finals, right? Pretty certain that's correct. Excuse me, that's correct. Amphitheater, White River State Park, going to be a perfect night. Just a perfect night. Because summertime and chilling out, if you will, when like last night would have been a perfect night for an outdoor show. No humidity, nice weather. It was literally chilly in Detroit for the IndyCar race. Saturday, I mean, I got up and we leave, and literally I had on a sweatshirt and a jacket. I mean, it was in the low 50s Saturday morning.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up IndyCar. So I saw the track dude Michael Young's video on social media.
Yep.
One, impressed that you were in sync the entire time.
Yeah.
The other, I couldn't help but notice this. I know I first thought about this when you make your annual trip to wherever you go with Mike Byron and he forgets his wallet and his keys.
Mm-hmm.
You're always driving.
Oh yeah.
Is that just like is that part of your problems that you always have to be in control of things, Jake?
That is 1,000% correct. For two things. Number one, I get a little bit motion sickness. Now, when Byron and I do our road trip, we do shift. I mean, we do probably 60-40 in terms of the driving. But Michael Young, track dude Michael Young, we rode up and back to Detroit together. Now, Michael's a great dude and has become a really, really solid friend and confidant. But first off, trying to get Michael Young to the car after a race is like herding cats. He has to talk to everyone, right?
So he's like Eddie White when the NFL Combine's in town.
Yes, that's exactly correct. And then once we get in the car, and literally when a race is over, the clock begins. I'm getting home, right? So I drove, and I'm like, and as soon as we get in the car, Michael's now looking up restaurants in Toledo for the drive home. You know, there's a good little British pub that I know in such and such town, and I'm like, no, dude, like this is a one-stop strategy, right? Because we got to refill the rental car. That's it. There's no the cruise is going at a certain speed, and boom, and we made it back in under 4. So I was pleased with that.
Impressive.
That's right.
Dang, Jake.
I was rapping along to we had my phone was plugged in, and we just had it on shuffle, and No More Questions by Eazy-E came on. And I started rapping along to it, and then I looked over, and Michael was filming me. And if you don't mind me saying so, I mean, pretty solid, right?
That's what I said, pretty solid. You were in rhythm the entire time and didn't get a single lyric wrong.
For some people to leave. I got another trick up my sleeve.
Jake, we've got people on hold for tickets.
Okay, so how would we like to give away said tickets here, Eddie?
Excellent question, Jake. It's Monday, and we're celebrating, so I feel like it should be an easy way. We just pick a caller, get to know your listener today.
Okay, Tony, we're going to do Pacers with you in just a second, but before that, I will let you pick which of those that is holding that you would like to go with, Eddie.
Let's go with Bill.
Bill is on the air. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Great. You?
You know, Bill, listen, we're landlocked inside this studio, so I have not seen a window, but when I came in today, it was a beautiful day outside. Is it still a beautiful day outside?
Fabulous.
Yeah, and not only that, Bill, the Pacers are in the NBA Finals. I mean, it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? I love it.
I went to the first game. The
first game of the Eastern Conference Finals?
No, the first game of the Pacers.
Ever?
Uh-huh. I'm probably one of the few people that can name the starting lineup.
Okay, who did they play? Do you remember?
Sure, Kentucky Colonels.
Okay, now, Bill, how about this? If you get this right, now you're going to get the tickets regardless, but this is one of my favorite trivia questions, okay?
Let it happen, Captain.
Who is the only player in basketball history to win an ABA championship, an NBA championship, and an NCAA championship?
Gosh, I know, and you know who that is. Wasn't it Thacker?
That is correct, Bill, yes.
I thought it was Tom Thacker. I thought that's who it was.
Now, how about this, Bill? Who's the only player this is not a Pacer, who's the only player in basketball history to lead the NCAA in scoring, the NBA in scoring, and the ABA in scoring?
No, I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
He
one.
shot underhanded free throws, and he had 3 boys that played in the
Oh,
NBA.
okay. Well, Rick Barry.
That's
he
Rick
played
Barry's
in an
correct.
All-Star game at Butler Fieldhouse.
Bill, let me ask you this. You sound like a fun guy, Bill. Now, I think, I don't know this for certain, but I think that I'm once again going to pair up with our friends from Mick Ultra Zero and do viewing parties for games 1 and 5 of the NBA Finals. But you sound like a fun guy, Bill. Who is your all-time favorite Indiana Pacer not named Reggie Miller or Tyrese Halliburton?
Well, it's Roger Brown. There's just no doubt about that. I get cold chills whenever I think. I went to his funeral. That's how much I love the guy.
Was it now the Raja? How clutch? How clutch
fabulous.
was he?
Oh, he was just fabulous. Well, you know how the Pacers got him. You know who touted him, don't you? Oscar Robertson.
Yeah, well, so Roger Brown was obviously, he had played at Dayton. He was involved in a gambling scandal, which by all account he was not involved with, but there was a gambling scandal that kind of froze him out of professional ball. He was working in Dayton, right? Working a blue collar job. And when the Pacers had their tryouts, they said, you got to go sign this guy. And he was the first guy they signed, right?
Yep. Fabulous.
Bill, I'll tell you what, on June 14th, you are going to be enjoying live music, and you're going to be doing so having relished in the fact that the night before at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Pacers had won an NBA Finals game, and you can still celebrate with Counting Crows when you are at the Everwise Amphitheater at White River watching Counting Crows, all right?
That's wonderful. Thanks, Jake.
Bill, I appreciate it. We will send you on your way. We'll come back. We'll take a couple more calls on the Pacers. We'll put a tie on all of it. Hand it off to John here on a Monday Pacers celebratory edition at Query & Company. into the week in terms of the matchup for the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, Tony has called in the program to join. Hi, Tony. How are you?
Hi, Jake. Hey, obviously, it could be snowing, cloudy, and 20 degrees outside. It would be a beautiful day in Indianapolis today.
You're not kidding about that. It's pretty awesome.
It's just great to see what this franchise has done. And a fan since they played in the Coliseum back in the 60s. And, you know, I've heard a couple of your other callers reference that. And I think it's just great to see what's happened since then. Although I would say, you know, they credit Bobby Leonard and his wife Nancy with saving the franchise. I almost create an argument that the player that helped with that was maybe George McGinnis.
Yeah, undoubtedly, right?
After he came, they started getting their championships. And just a little note, I played against George back in high school. And,
now, I want to know this, Tony. You were at what school when he was at Indianapolis, Washington?
Southport.
Okay. And you limited him to how many points in the Washington-Southport matchups of 68 or 69?
Hey, that's one of my claims to fame. He was a sophomore. I was a senior. I was 6'1.5" and 165 pounds. He was 6'8" and nearly 200. While I had him, until I fouled out, while I had him, I held him to 4 points.
And you fouled out in how many minutes?
Well, it was into the second. It was into the second half.
That's not bad.
Towards
not
the end
bad.
of the third quarter.
Actually, listen.
Towards the end of the.
No, that's not bad. The late great Fred Scott, who I knew and played at Muncie Central, always bragged about holding Oscar scoreless, and I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And then he finally confessed to the fact that he held him scoreless because when they played Addix, Addix had the ball inside of 2 minutes to go. Fred Scott came in the game, and then Addix went to a spread and ran the clock out. So he held Oscar scoreless. So, hey, but no, that's holding George to 4 through 2 quarters is pretty darn impressive. Lastly, John's going to be in here in just a minute, but I wanted to work in Fulton, who's been waiting patiently. Fulton, my understanding is, as we are celebrating the Pacers today, you've got a big sporting event coming up this weekend. Is that right, Fulton?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so tell me what you got going on.
Well, I'm going to be doing the 200-meter dash this year, and then I'm going to do the long jump and then the relay.
Okay, this is
2x4 relay.
This is the 200-meter, the long jump, and the relay, and this is going to be in Terre Haute, right? Part of Special Olympics?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's going to be our 56th anniversary of Special Olympics this year.
Fulton, let me tell you something, man. I don't know that there is anything in sport quite like the beauty of Special Olympics. And, you know, I've talked before about, like, my friend Bailey that won. She came in second place in bowling and then in basketball as well. But you've been working hard for it, right? You've been training for it?
Yep, I have been training for it. It's my whole entire career, and I was on Wish TV on Channel 8, and it's the 1 year anniversary when I went on that station.
Well, Fulton, you can say that on the 1 year anniversary that you also made a radio appearance, which I know you've been on the show before. But I want to wish you the very best of luck. We're all pulling for you, and I hope you have a lot of fun. That's the most important thing with it, is that you have fun with it, which I know you will be doing. But just know that you got a bunch of people that win, lose, or draw will be pulling for you, all right?
Exactly, Jake. And don't forget, I'll be on stage of Earth, Wind, and Fire next month. Going to be on stage with them in
all
July.
Right.
So.
Well, I know John's told me because John came out and saw you for one of your holiday shows, and I know that you got a lot of talent, Fulton, but we wish you the best of luck with that. And, again, the Special Olympics, awesome. And run your hardest is the most important thing, right? Run your hardest. I'm really intrigued by the matchup of the Pacers and the Thunder. And the reason I'm intrigued by it, and at the same time, you know, if you look at the 2 games where they played this year, and now is where we transition kind of more into breaking it down. There's reason for optimism. There's reason for pause. The Thunder have been a very big challenge for Tyrese Halliburton. He has not had, if you look at the team that has held him over the last 2 years to his, I believe, his lowest point per game scoring average in the last 2 seasons for Halliburton. It's against Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City also, as I mentioned earlier, they do what Indiana does. The Pacers, I think, caught, even though teams knew of it in the regular season, once things were really going for the Pacers, I think they caught some teams off guard a little bit by the pace in which they play now that they're healthy. And it's been tough for teams to keep up with that. The one team that plays that same style but does so even more defensively is Oklahoma City. So it absolutely will be a huge challenge for them. And brace yourself right now. And I don't know why anybody would care, but brace yourself right now for the fact that everybody under the sun is going to be predicting Oklahoma City is going to win the series. And who cares? They're there, and nobody thought they'd beat New York. Nobody thought they'd beat Cleveland. And yet they're still standing. And the Pacers are in the NBA Finals. I love everything about it. I know John has as well because he basically turned it into a weekend civic celebration and party.
Holy
and
crap, Jake. Holy crap. That was
cool,
awesome. You know, I heard you a little bit earlier. It was tough for those of us that have been around here forever not to become emotional.
Totally.
On Saturday night.
Totally.
Because it's more than, I mean, it's our state's sport, basketball, which we love. And then it's the Pacers who kind of just lay dormant for so long. And here they are back in the finals. That was special. And I tell you what really got me, when Miles went over and embraced Nancy Leonard,
yeah,
I thought, man, oh, man, there it is. There was some emotionally charged folks, I think, in the place
I think
on
Miles
Saturday.
Turner has cemented himself now. I think there's a lot of thought, John, from a lot of people that, and it took people a while to come around to this, but I think there are people that would like to see the Pacers win it. As much for Miles Turner as anybody.
Yeah.
Obviously for Nancy Leonard and, Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan and, and Donnie and the Benners and, there's a lot, right? But I think from a player standpoint, I think Miles Turner, this has really cemented him now as a fan favorite. There is no question they have to bring him back next year.
There's still jackasses out there. Don't get me wrong. I still hear from jackasses about,
really?
Oh, yeah, lack of rebounds. He can't do this and soft
the lack
and low
of rebounds,
post play.
though,
Can you imagine? And the soft is the best because there's no greater group in the world than get on social media and anonymously come at you. There's nothing that is more soft than that. But, yeah, just occasionally, not as much as he used to be. And listen, I didn't do any sales tactics or any sales pitch. He did that himself by hanging with it. There's something to be said about fighting through the bad times, embracing the good times, and then as we talk about all the time, a Shawshank Redemption coming out on the other end clean and
Eddie's
moving
never
on down
seen
the
Shawshank,
road, man.
you know that, right?
So he's not seen that, has he, Shawshank? No. I don't know about you, brother. Did not know about you. How have you not seen Shawshank? What the hell?
It's what would you say? Top 5 movie all time?
Mm-hmm. Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Who was out at your dad's house the other day? Somebody went out and pulled weeds. Who was it?
Oh, I have no idea. That's
Why
news
not?
to me.
Yeah, I think so. Is it somebody random pulling weeds in your
I don't know.
dad's house? But no, seriously, Jake, this is pretty awesome. I wish we could do shows in OKC, and I hope they don't get their doors blown off. But at the same time, this is pretty special. You have a Kit Kat Rolo, which I'm assuming is from Canada.
Correct.
Because when I went to London, I brought back a bunch of Kit Kat peanut butters.
You want the Kit Kat Rolo? Because I brought it for
I
Eddie.
do
He doesn't
not.
like
That would
caramel.
not be on the diet.
plan.
The diet right
Fair
there.
enough.
It'd be
What is on the big show today?
Chad Buchanan, Pacers general manager. Tom Crean. We'll talk, I'm sure, about Thomas Bryant and what was a resurgent night for him on Saturday. Pretty amazing.
Big
there.
arrival for him. Yep.
Eddie Gill's going to join us, too. Got a busy week where hopefully we're all going to get out, all of us, get out and have some fun. Hopefully we're doing something that also is with the Pacers and their viewing party. And this is what it's all about. It's not all about sitting around and whining and crying about a team being average or below average and not living up to expectations. By God, this is it. Let's celebrate it a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
As
let's
I
have
was
some
saying,
fun with it.
Celebrate today, and then we'll start working up the matchups and try to break it all down. But John's up
How's
next.
Shannon doing? Where's she?
What's that?
Where's Shannon?
She is back. She had to go to Denver for her brother's birthday party, so she was with all of her siblings, and they videotaped all of them watching the end of the game.
Oh, really?
So,
That's
yeah.
great. That's
So-
pretty special right there.
John, it was Miss M's. They were replacing some dead trees.
Huh?
Miss M's Home and Garden. That was
It
it.
better be, by God. Let me tell you that. It better be.
Yeah,
because that's
don't want that
text from my
property
dad.
value going down, right?
They ride shotgun with little Johnny right here, so you know that's got to be Miss M's. I'd go down there and like do it myself if it wasn't. So.
Thank you to Steve Simon for joining the show today. John is up
Steve
next.
Simon,
we'll bring
everybody.
you home, and I thank you for listening to Aquarian